And welcome to another episode of Gopher Gridiron Radio. I am Gopher Gazette publisher, editor in chief, whatever you want to call me, Ryan Burns. We welcome you guys to another episode as we are recording today. We're almost about 50 days out until your Golden Gophers are going to be taking the field against the Eastern Illinois, I think they're Panthers,
I
a
thought,
game
yeah.
that, yeah, a game in which they should most certainly win. And if that voice you thought you heard was, boy, Luke sounds a little bit different today. No Luke Buer today on the podcast. And instead, we get the second edition. If you think back to, we've done, I believe, a bowl episode with Mr. Dan Owen, who is the newest paid staff member of Gopher Gazette, someone that has sat next to me in the press box for quite a long time, someone that I have told that if and when I get control of this thing, I want to make you on staff, a paid writer. And well, Dan, here we are, and we're a couple weeks into the venture. So, welcome to the Go for Gridiron Radio podcast. And why don't you tell folks a little bit about what we're going to be having you do?
Well, thank you there, Mr. Burns. I am joining the staff. Going to be a little bit of a jack of all trades, but you're going to see and hear from me. If you go head over to the site right now, a lot on women's basketball. Gopher Gazette adding women's basketball coverage. I'll be tag teaming men's basketball coverage with Ryan James, the one and only. If you've headed or checked out our YouTube page, I'm working behind the scenes on that. In fact, that's a little bit of the reason why I'm here today. Because when I start harassing Burns about, hey, let's make sure we get a video up this week, it's July. There's not that much to talk about, and so here we are as we scrape the ideas list for what we can put out here. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about some sports business topics, a subject near and dear to my heart, and I hope that people find it as interesting as I do. Because as you well know, Burnsy, I nerd out over all of this stuff.
Yeah, it's one of our discussions that we normally have either an hour or two before a game, halftime, after a game, when we're done doing what we need to do, just kind of shooting the breeze. Figured that at least if we're having those discussions in the press box, that probably should make their way to an episode. And as Dan said, since we are in the heat dome that is now Minneapolis and St. Paul, where it's only 95 and 75 dew points every day, I say this as a member of the big back community. I'm very sweaty these days,
Mm.
but it also means that the Gopher coaching staff, football wise, has been on vacation now for some time, including everybody's favorite head coach, at least at some point here in the last couple of weeks, left the country to go travel in Europe. I'm sure I'll be writing about that come Big Ten Media Days about 2 weeks' time from now. But I think it's going to be an interesting type of episode because this is one of the Dan's area of expertise where like to talk about on this podcast how we like to get a little bit more deeper into the weeds. I'm a sports management major by trade. I don't really get to use it a whole heck of a lot. So I'm excited to kind of get into the minutia of conference expansion, TV ratings, different types of that. But Dan, I'll give you the reins. Where do you want to go?
Well, I think we start with maybe the most ever exciting topic in college sports, which is conference expansion. It will not die. Maybe it will die here. We'll talk about that a little bit, but conference expansion was supposed to be on the back burner here in these next couple years because ACC's got some pretty hefty exit fees. The landscape has cooled down since the Big Ten added the West Coast teams. The SEC adds Texas and Oklahoma. And now, all of a sudden, we're right back on the front burner as Congress is starting to talk about the Protect College Sports Act. And with that, they are considering putting in a prohibition effectively on conference expansion, at least at the upper echelons of college athletics. All of a sudden now, this might be the last chance that Big Ten, SEC get to bring in teams. They might rush it. If I'm being honest, I don't know that it happens, but it could.
Yeah. Well, as we're recording this, I know that we've seen reports in the last couple of days here in mid July that the Big Ten and the SEC continue to have the stance of they oppose it. Now, what we've seen come out here, I would say in the last 72, 96 hours, is there are discussions from the Big Ten and SEC officials with specific members of folks trying to write this bill that I think reparations on both sides, or at least concessions, I should say, are being made. So the question is going to end up being, what are those concessions that the Big Ten and the SEC will get behind? Because I think all of us, whether it's Big Ten and SEC administrators, college football fans, whoever it may be, they want to try and get at least some guardrails on this thing, which I know you read it, where I got on Gopher Gazette one of the first few days, Derek Burns, who, again, member of this podcast, runs Minnesota's NIL collective, Dinkytown Athletes. And it was interesting to hear him essentially say the Protect College Sports Acts as it is written currently is not a good thing for Minnesota in his mind. Now he gave me hundreds of words about why. And to paraphrase a little bit, because I want people to go read that, it is essentially along the lines of, because the Power Four is no longer the Power Four, it's now a Power Two. It is the Big Ten and the SEC. Minnesota is a part of the, obviously, the Power Two. And if you take away powers and different things within that, it's just, look, it's not where you are, it's where you're going, especially in college sports. And because Minnesota is a part of the Power Two, you don't want to or just give away different things to other conferences that may not be a part of it. So that's where it is going to be fascinating to see what the Protect College Sports Act ends up being. I think we're going to get a new version here very soon. But as it relates to conference expansion, I think topic A has to be, at least from the Minnesota perspective, aka the Big Ten. Is this going to be the thing that finally gets Notre Dame to do something? Because I think, to me, there are two schools, Big Ten wise, that I think would make some sense. One is Notre Dame, Midwest, la di da, prestige, blue blood, whatever you want to call them. Everybody knows the logo. And then the other one would be North Carolina, to me, a team that Go Football obviously played just a couple of years ago. But are those the two that kind of come to the top of your mind if there is going to be a last gasp? If the Big Ten isn't going to, which the funny part about me saying that is we're already at 18 teams in the quote, air quote, Big Ten. What would be 20, Dan? I don't know. Who's to say?
20, 22, 26, 24. Why stop at 20? It's such a
You're ruining
nice.
college sports at that point, Dan. Come on, man. Come on,
But
man.
yeah, Notre Dame is number one with a bullet. We don't even really need to discuss them. I don't think anyone questions the fit Notre Dame would have in the Big Ten. They are one of the true premier brands that is going to bring in tons of TV ratings. If I'm the Big Ten, and I don't know that they would be willing to do this because of the precedent it would set, I would bend over backwards and give extra to get Notre Dame into the conference. They are that valuable of a brand, and they change the equation in terms of what you can get in TV deals, what you can put out as a product for streamers. I mean, streaming services would love to get their hands on some Notre Dame games. It changes the dynamic of the conference in ways that would benefit everyone, but it would also, I mean, for a school like Minnesota, add one more blue blood type program that stands in the way of the Gophers getting to the promised playoff land.
Well, that's where I would. I think the pushback has to be, if you actually want to analyze the Notre Dame thing. I don't think. I think the reason they play an ACC schedule right now and not a Big Ten, and I think you've seen it play out when they've gotten into these high level spots, is I think they know that they would go from whatever they go every year, 10-2, 11-1, to, I think there's a lot more possibilities for them to swing down into an 8-4 or a 9-3. Now, I'm not telling you that there aren't going to be years for them that they'll make the college football playoff still. I think specifically this upcoming season, I'm probably one of the higher people on Notre Dame. I think they should be, if they just do what they're supposed to do and be in the college football playoff. But isn't that the whole bit? Is they can say whatever they want to say, but again, you play an ACC schedule, man. But in terms of a Big Ten perspective with them, I mean, yes, I mean they are the one where I would almost agree with you. If you're trying to, because I don't think you need to expand, but if you're going to, and Notre Dame is the one coming to the table for you, I am absolutely listening to see what is this exorbitant demand that it would end up being.
Well, when we talk about expansion, the Big Ten has, I think, I would posit the Big Ten has made some mistakes in the expansion landscape. Adding Rutgers and Maryland was nice at the time. It did a ton of good for the Big Ten in terms of boosting like TV revenues specifically for putting the Big Ten network in market in certain areas, high population areas. But as we continue to get further and further away from the traditional cable bundle type setup, and we think about what the streaming landscape looks like, streamers don't care how many households are in market for Maryland or Rutgers getting to count New York City as part of its in which is I think dumb, but again, the Big Ten was playing by the rules the TV networks and cable companies used, and they won on that metric. But with streaming, it's going to be about how many eyeballs do you attract, how good are the games that you put forth, and Maryland and Rutgers, how many truly great games have they had in the Big Ten? I not many. And I mean, sometimes the great games are the crazy upsets that no one want really tuned into anyway, because it
Right.
was a second tier game on the Big Ten network.
What do you mean, at
Though
11 a.m. on BTN? How
I
dare you
look,
besmirch my? Yeah, how dare you?
you will not catch me talking bad about an 11 a.m. game. Bernsey, you know you have
I
seen
love
me.
myself an 11 a.m. game. I know. I look. I understand from a fan perspective that everyone hates it, but I'm also like, I hate. There were so many night games last year, and again, fan perspective wise, heck yeah, man. You get all day to tailgate. You don't got to wake up early. You get to get done with the game, go home, go to bed. It's just from the media perspective. Those were some long nights and some early mornings. I ain't asking anybody to play the world's saddest song on the smallest violin for us in the media that get to live a dream job every day. But golly, those night games add up, especially when I elect to take a 5 a.m. flight back. Now, Justin Guard would tell you, Ryan, no one's forcing you to do that. You have your own free will, and I understand that. But I also want to get home and be able to do stuff on Sunday. But I know I'm going off on a tangent. I'm sorry. This is how it goes.
Yeah, I mean that 5 a.m. flight thing, that's your own dumb fault. Like
I know.
that not
It
me.
is what it
Ain't gonna
is.
be me. But the greatest thing about the 11 a.m. game, that 9-10 a.m. media buffet with the bacon on it. I
Oh,
love
good
that.
for you.
I love it. I'm getting excited just thinking about it. Just a plate full of bacon and then a second plate full of
Uh,
bacon. I can't get my popcorn in the press box. Bacon's a good consolation prize.
I think many
You,
people would tell you that.
but as
What do you think
far
about
as
North Carolina with this bit? Because I think
yeah,
that would be the one that there's been it's not just us throwing a name against the wall to see if it sticks. That's one that I've heard from people at high levels or even in media circles for some time that had been rumored. Now you mentioned the ACC exit fee, but what would you think about the hypothetical nature of North Carolina?
North Carolina makes a ton of sense to me, and I'll tell you this: people who are inside college football in ways I never will be have repeatedly come to me and said North Carolina is one of the best jobs out there. The expectations are relatively low and the talent pool is high.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about, Big 10 looking at expansion, I think North Carolina maybe circles the sweet spot of they're not going to be a an ornery presence in the conference. I think they'll go along to get along, but it gives you access to an incredible talent pool in the Carolinas. It moves your foothold a little bit further south. There are good matchups between the North Carolina and Maryland that might be a money matchup, and and I think this gets underrated in the overall expansion talk. They're a basketball blue blood, like a
Yeah,
true elite school, and at some point, and we haven't found that this mark yet, and maybe we never will, but at some point, there's only so much juice you can wring out of the football side in terms of quality games and sellable content. And I've always thought an untapped area for the Big Ten is to think about, don't prioritize it, but think about basketball and making yourself an elite basketball product as well with games that especially streamers are going to want. Because the advantage college basketball has is it's on almost every night. And you can
sure.
put those games on consistently for a long stretch of time. So I don't sleep on the basketball component in North Carolina. They make a ton of sense to me, and they are a team. I'll just a little spoiler here. In conjunction with this, my little Friday Five article where I throw out a list of five this week is going to be what are the top five expansion targets for the Big Ten in a hypothetical expansion scenario. North Carolina's on that list, and they're not at the bottom.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't want to. I see. I don't want to take away from it because again, I want people to go to gophergazette.com, support the work that you do. But I think those two, unless there's a third that comes immediately to the top of your mind, I don't want to expand just to expand. I think there's already enough teams as there is, and I also I'm one of those old man shakes his fist at the cloud that says I wish things were more regional. And because we'll get
I
into it
get
here
it.
in a few minutes, it's I mean, there are some upcoming seasons for Minnesota where myself and fans and the team are going to be literally going from coast to coast from
Yeah,
Minnesota, which thank God for MSP that everybody's going to be able to get there pretty easily. But I also am okay with a couple of games in Indiana like there is this year.
I would say the place I think you maybe are sleeping on a little bit for expansion is the state of Florida. I don't have a third team. I have a third and a fourth team. Miami and Florida State both fit the Big Ten fairly well. I hate the idea of adding
I
Florida State. I love the
uh,
idea of adding Miami. If you give me Notre Dame, Miami, I'd dump UNC in a heartbeat. I think those two would be grand slam additions for the conference. But getting into the state of Florida would have a lot of value for the Big Ten. And at this point, just embrace you're a nationwide conference at this point. There's no reason to stick to regionality when we're at literally on the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans.
no, I
Take
get it.
Florida too. It's such a talent rich market. It's a major market. It gets you those Florida eyeballs, which is relevant for that kind of that breaking the Southeast stranglehold the SEC has.
I get it, but I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to look directly into the souls of the folks watching on YouTube. I absolutely despise it with every fiber of my being. That just,
Oh,
again, I think of Big Ten football, I think of Midwest, cold, and I'm thinking to myself, am I really going to go down? Like, say it's Miami, Florida. Look, I'll make it a whole week. I got married in the Florida Keys. You don't have to tempt me with a good time to go down there, get some fishing in, go enjoy the like, but it's just like, golly gee willikers, Batman. It just doesn't feel right coming off the tongue.
I get
That's
it.
all I need. I needed to say that piece to be able to sleep tonight.
I did Los Angeles feel right coming off the tongue? Hitting Hollywood?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Which, by the way, guess where I get to go next year? L.A. to go watch Minnesota at USC in the Coliseum. So I get what you're saying. It's just like I, I'm sure you understand. It's just like it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't.
Like I get it. I do. I think we've crossed the Rubicon at that point.
Sure.
I love conference expansion. I'm not a traditionalist, but I also think when we if we want to talk about traditional matchups,
Hmm.
that Miami brand has been strong for a while. And if you can give me a redux of Catholics versus convicts, let's add Notre Dame too, or some throwbacks to like
uh,
Miami versus Nebraska. Like
mhm.
I'm all about that. And that's where I love the Miami brand because there are some of those things you can call into. You can go back to the Ohio State Miami national championship game, right? How fun would it be to relive that matchup every few years? Sign me up, man. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I get it. I just can't get behind it. I get it. I can't get behind it. And again, very hypothetical. We'll have to see what happens in the Protect College Sports Act. I have to at least say it right once, but I will be very interested to see what are the negotiating tactics from the Big Ten and the SEC to get this thing across the finish line. But as we record this, I don't know that we know those.
Yeah, just circling back to that real quick. I mean, it changes every week, and I saw yesterday some breakdown of one of the most recent calls. It seemed to hint at one of the changes to the bill might reopen the ability to expand post bill signing. I think the end of this week we expect to hear some news about what the latest changes are that are
Mhm.
coming from quote unquote productive talks between the Big Ten, the SEC, and those leaders in the Senate who are running with the bill. I don't even know if the bill is going to get across the finish line at all. it's the best hope we've ever had.
I was about to say that why we're talking about it, and I agree, is because this is the furthest along it's gotten,
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot of optimism that it can get across the finish line, but there's going to have to be some changes made if the Big 10 and the SEC are gonna get behind it, which then would mean I'm going to assume more people of power in political situations will then support it. So it'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, but it changes all the time, and so the whole talk of is there some mad dash scramble expansion here? It could be out the window in a week. I don't know, but I do think it's gonna be interesting to watch. Expansion, the
Mhm.
burner's at least lit underneath our pan, and we'll see if it comes to a boil again.
All right, where do you want to go next?
Look, let's talk TV ratings because I think that ties in nicely with conference expansion and maybe the whys for why the Big Ten might consider expansion. I think if there is expansion, it will be the Big Ten leading that charge yet again. And a big part of it has to do with TV ratings.
So, one of the areas where, again, we talk about these media rights deals and how the Gophers are now collecting just exorbitant amounts of money is because specifically TV ratings and these media rights deals are just so large because the only thing that seemingly more and more people are tuning into every year are live sporting events, specifically in this country, the United States of America, football. And that's where I didn't know this until the pre-production meeting, or I guess I hadn't thought about it, is the Big Ten didn't have the year that they thought they were going to have in 2025.
They did, and we have recently kicked off kind of newer relationships between the two top dogs, the Big Ten, the SEC, kind of split in the way that they approached their TV rights deals. The SEC is all in with ESPN. Every
Mhm.
game is going to be on some form of ESPN controlled network, be it ABC, the ESPNs, ESPNU, I guess sometimes the SEC network. The Big Ten went with a Big Tent approach. They have Fox, they've got NBC, CBS. On the NBC side, they had Peacock games. And then, of course, you've got the Big Ten Network, which is at least a quasi Fox entity, similar to the way the SEC network is an ESPN entity. I think maybe there's a little bit less Fox ownership, but Fox is the majority controlling stake in the Big Ten network. And so but the Big Ten went wide. They gave games to three different network partners for their kind of their top tier of games. And when we get into the TV ratings back for last season, 2025, generally speaking, it was an SEC wipeout. The SEC, kind of in a head to head kind of competition, won week to week over Big Ten games, even when the Big Ten had one of their truly marquee games on TV. And we were talking about there in the pre production meeting, as you mentioned, one of the big reasons I think is what is a casual fan's experience with this? If I'm a casual fan and I'm the one then who is driving TV ratings, because there are a whole lot more casual fans than there are nerds like me and you who
Mhm.
understand where to go to figure out all the games. I sit down on my couch, maybe I just got done mowing the lawn, crack a cold beer, flip on the TV. I consistently know what I'm going to get if I tune into ABC or ESPN. There's a rhythm to the games. ABC is, I mean, yeah, they once in a while they have a Big 12 game or an ACC game in the mix, but it's going to be the three best SEC games, and it's going to move from the 11 a.m. game to the 2:30 game to the 6:30 game, up in quality. And so every time when I turn on the TV, I know what I'm getting. If I'm interested in tuning into a Big Ten game, maybe I know, oh, isn't that right? Oregon and Penn State's going on today. We got Ohio State, Indiana. I don't know where to get that game. It might be the 11 a.m. Fox. It might be later. It might be a different network. I don't know. And I think that is a big component of why those ratings suffered a little bit for the Big Ten.
Well, isn't that like the whole you what I'm trying to get at here is I even look at like, okay, what's Minnesota's TV schedule like so far for 2026? And that's where, to your point, the casual fan just can't flip on, Channel 5 or ESPN and find it. You got Peacock week 1 for Minnesota against Eastern Illinois. Then you're on CBS the next week slash Paramount Plus, which, oh, by the way, if you want to become a lovely and handsome Gopher Gazette member, Paramount Plus is included in your monthly subscription, or you can join 50% off annual. But you have two different ones in the first 2 weeks. Okay, I want to see how they do then against the Akron Zips, BTN. They've got another one set at the end of the season on NBC against Wisconsin. I think that Iowa game, there's going to be one of these games the Gophers play on Fox, I would imagine, as well, to be determined. I mean, we're talking that's already 5 different TV places that you have to go. And I say this as someone who then has to help loved ones in my life that are of an older age to try and get them signed into the app, get them to be able to find it, get them to be able to tune into it because it's not as simple as it used to be where it's Midwest Sports Channel or you turn on ESPN and there's Gophers versus Purdue. I mean, how much do you just put into that where even like I said from the Gopher perspective here, there's going to be at least 5 different TV like places to find the Gophers. They only have 12 games here.
Yeah.
Like it's not like when I watch the Twins, I know they're going to be on the Twins channel. You got to work and you got to work hard to find some of these games.
Yeah, it's going to get easier year to year, as more people move and migrate off of the traditional cable model to something like YouTube TV, which is going to learn what you like to watch. You're going to say, "Oh, I love the Gophers." It's going to see you watching all the Gopher games. So it'll start to, surface recommendations for you. But the problem there is the people who are sticking around on cable the longest are the ones who need the most help finding the games, and they're put into that tough position. You even mentioned the Akron Minnesota game on BTN. I know that is not the only game on BTN. So depending on where you live geographically, might be on BTN, might be on a Big Ten alternate channel. Who knows where that is in your own TV package? As you said, I've gotten the phone calls. How do I find this game? You got to go to click the settings button. You got to go down. It's a whole ordeal, and it's hard on the fans. And that lack of consistency, I think, did drain ratings a little bit. Again, from the casual fan who's not die hard locked in on where is my game, where are all of the games. I'm sitting out here sketching out on napkins what game I'm gonna watch when, which one's gonna be in which box on my YouTube TV quad box. Most fans aren't like that, and it's just so easy to flip on, say, ABC, and know you're gonna get
Correct. No,
consistently good product.
that's where, again, with the Big Ten product getting better and better every year, stronger and stronger every year, that's the part of the reason they've won 3 consecutive national titles. I mean, I get the frustration, but I also have talked to enough people specifically within the University of Minnesota athletic department where they trust me, they see your emails, they see your complaints when you talk to them in person, but they've also got a business to run, which is their athletic department. And if you want specifically those non-revenue sports to continue to exist in this day, and they're going to have to keep cashing the media rights check, which is primarily driven by football ratings. So you can't, you have to just be able to balance it out a little bit. So it's just, I get the frustration, Dan. I do.
Yeah. So now here's where I'd like to step back for a second and just sort of explain some things about what are the implications of these TV ratings, big picture. The Big Ten lost the regular season ratings war pretty handily to the
Yeah.
SEC. Does that mean, oh, there's less interest in the Big Ten? No. You look at certain key points in the schedule. Thought it was noteworthy. You had the Big Ten championship game, Ohio State, Indiana, very quality game. That won the ratings war against Alabama, Georgia, the SEC championship game. It's no slouch of game itself.
Well, wouldn't it isn't the easiest explanation for that. Everybody wanted to see if Indiana was the real deal compared to we've seen Bama versus Georgia 49 times in the last 6 years.
It that is an easy explanation. If you're an SEC apologist, that's probably the avenue you're going to go down.
So I'm
The
Peter Burns instead of Ryan Burns at that point.
Exactly right. You are selling
Just
out
another
for Uncle
cousin of the
Paul.
podcast. Us Burns men are everywhere in college football somehow.
um, but you can also look at we talk about regular season ratings. Big Ten lost, but what was the number one rated game? Burns, I didn't give you this tidbit. I'll let you guess. Number one rated regular season game on the schedule. Should be an easy one for you. What are you
Is
thinking?
it Ohio State, Michigan?
Ohio State, Michigan.
Mhm.
The game. So when we talk about the core interest, and it's part of the driving factor of why the Big Ten has been able to get such good TV deals, like Big Ten schools have huge alumni bases. They perform in the ratings consistently.
Mhm.
And so I don't think this is a case where the SEC is actually outpacing the Big Ten in pure interest or like raw TV ratings. I think it's the delivery mechanism the Big Ten chose with that split package that is kind of hampering it a little bit. So if we turn the attention to what does the television landscape look like in a few years, Big Ten's current TV contract runs until the 2029 or runs through the 2029-2030 season.
Yeah.
So 2030 college football season is the next time the Big Ten's TV market is going to shift. Probably next time with expansion, you never know what might happen.
Right.
Um, I think the Big Ten's still going to be in an incredibly strong position. I would expect they are going to get a market shattering deal, potentially doubling the amount of revenue schools are going to get. Like, that's how strong the Big Ten brand is, even when you're losing the ratings war. But I think
And
we're going to see.
just
Oops,
to be
sorry, go
clear
ahead.
here, to give perspective, if Dan is right on that aspect. Now, the thing with it is I'm going to be very curious to see if within the Big 10 are there payouts tiered where the Ohio States and the Michigans get a certain amount compared to what someone like the University of Minnesota would get. But even in that world where Minnesota is not in the number one or number two tier, I bet you tier three money is still pretty dang good money, especially relative to non-power two conferences. So that's still very important to say.
Yeah, I mean, and you want to talk about payment structure and what that might look like? We
We're
might need.
years away from those negotiations having to happen. As Dan said, I mean,
Yeah,
we're still 3, 4 years away, and those conversations really won't start to kick off for another couple of years. But it is
yeah,
important to note. But because Minnesota is still structured within this thing, that is a great place to be, and it's one of the best places to be, regardless of where you stand within it.
yeah. I mean, it is where you want to be.
Yeah.
But when we talk about TV partners, if I was going to place a bet on what happens, and if I'm Fox executives, this is where my head's at right now. I think Fox is going to look to get a bigger slice of the Big Ten pie. Now, granted, conference expansion may make that pie bigger anyway, but I think Fox might look to, instead of saying we're going to be the number one partner, but on any given week, our Big Noon Sunday might be the third or fourth best Big Ten game. I think Fox is going to try and lock in first pick every week so they can make Big Noon a consistent presence. And they'll probably look to get more Big Ten games on their schedule as well. How does that happen? You probably end up cutting out one of CBS or NBC on the football side. I
Oh
don't think
no.
NBA, the terror. I don't know that NBC is thrilled with what they're getting out of the Big Ten in terms of ratings and is it worth the money. But I will say NBC shows a lot more initiative in promoting and leveraging their streaming service, Peacock, for Big Ten products, especially getting Big Ten basketball on there. You go
Mhm.
onto the Peacock app, you will see a specific little section in their sports for Big Ten. I went on to Paramount Plus's app one time to try and dig up an old Minnesota game last season. Nothing. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of branding on there for sports for soccer, but they don't seem to care as much about the college football component from the streaming side. It's going to be an interesting balance, but I unless the Big 10 expands out more and has more inventory to sell, I wouldn't be surprised if you drop one of those two partners from the platform. You might drop both of them because I think it's going to be interesting to see does Netflix or does Amazon say, hey, we actually do want to get in on this. Amazon makes sense. I think Netflix maybe not so much. They're more
Well,
event based.
that's what I wanted to ask you to kind of put a pin in this one is as much as it is about say the static TV, I think the area that I want to see if they want to throw their hat into the ring because more and more of us are becoming more adept with streaming and that seemingly everyone has an Amazon Prime subscription at this point is what percent chance, and again, no one's going to hold you to this outside of me, is what percent chance do you think that in 5 years when this thing gets restructured that folks are going to have to watch a Gopher football game on Amazon Prime or Netflix?
I will say 55%, maybe 60%.
Wow,
Let's go
that's
50.
high.
Well, I actually think it's low. I'm going to say 55%. If you had said not Gopher game, but Big Ten game, I'd have said 85%. I,
Crazy times we're in, man. That's I get it and I do. It's just like, oh, I don't want to take those phone calls to be like, "Where's the game this time?" It's on Amazon. What do you mean it's on Amazon? Wow, we'll
yeah.
figure it all out there. But I mean, that is truthfully, again, as we're seeing more and more sports end up on those two avenues. I could definitely see that. Yeah, that makes boy a little bit different than Midwest Sports Channel, ain't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I miss those days, the good old MSC days before it became
Fox
Fox
Sports North.
Sports, and
Yep.
then it just now it's dead, which
Yeah.
my heart breaks a little bit for.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't surprise me, especially to see Netflix get into event based games where it's maybe even bowl games, could be the playoffs. Like those are that's the kind of
Yeah,
content
that's a good
Netflix has
point.
gravitated towards. That's why I say it'd be 85% if you gave me Big Ten, because it makes a lot of sense to me for Netflix to want to get in on this. I just don't know that it'll be a regular package. I think it's going to be focused on trying to get whether it's a Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama, like the big marquee brands in either a showcase game or again a playoff game. That the playoff games fit so well for Netflix's strategy. It wouldn't shock me.
Mm.
It really wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all to see a Gopher bowl game specifically on a non-traditional a place that you haven't seen it in
Yeah.
some time. That's a great point. I hadn't even thought about that. Mm.
If if you have bowl games at all, a heart breaks. But I mean the bowl games might not stick around, especially if we get our playoff expansion.
Which eh, I look, I don't want to see it go past 16. I think at 24 we really start to kind of lose the plot where if you just have a good season, you get a participation trophy and you get in. And I understand that for the Minnesota perspective on this, the seasons they've had of late wouldn't have been in there. 7-5 is still a good season, but to be able to be on that precipice of the 24, you got to be a strong 8-4, definitely 9-3. I just I understand this thing is just being more and more to whatever the TV overlords want us to be, but if it gets to 24, Dan,
I
I
want
don't know.
24. Sign me up for 24, man.
Let
But
me let me hear
not the way they're
let me
doing
hear
it.
the argument.
Okay. Here's the argument. If we get 24, the way it seems like they are trending towards right now, I'm with you. When I say the way they're trending right now is just 24 teams. You look at the CFP rankings where they put out the top 25, cut off the last team on that list, and that's your playoff field. I'm out on that. I that does not excite me very much. Like you said, it creates a little bit of a participation trophy, and you just kind of get in, and making the playoffs doesn't feel all that meaningful anymore. And we've seen numbers. I don't remember which national writer put it together, but it would have been Pat 40. It was, it's a rundown of over the last 10 years, 12 years, whatever it was. Here are all the teams that would have made the playoffs, and it's like pretty much everybody at some is going to make the playoffs. If you're in Big Ten, the SEC, and even the ACC or Big 12. But here's the argument I'll make for 24 teams with a modified format that everyone hates: auto bids. I I want conferences to be given locked in automatic bids so that you can turn around and make the regular season something truly epic. And this was talked about, and I think we're going to get back to these conversations eventually, but everyone got spooked at the notion of auto bids being counter to the fairness of college sport. Let's say the Big Ten gets four locked in playoff bids, and it's Big Ten, you figure out how you want to fill those spots. If I'm the Big Ten, I then turn around and say, all right, conference regular season, top six teams are going to make a playoff weekend or a play, maybe I should call it a play in weekend, where teams 1 and 2, you can still compete for the Big Ten championship game, the traditional championship game we have seen year after year. If you want to, I know that there's kind of trending. People are getting wanting to get away from those games is meaningless, but top two teams, you're locked into the playoffs. You've got a guaranteed spot. Maybe go fight for conference championship. It's a good marketable game and all that. But then take team 3 and 6 and 4 and 5 and send them to true play-in games for the playoffs. I think that a Saturday late in the like after the season, that first week of December, where we get to tune in and see truly high stakes, win and you're in type games between say Penn State and Minnesota and maybe USC or Michigan and Iowa, or maybe it's USC versus Michigan. Who knows what those matchups shake out as? I am all in on that. I think it would be so much fun. And we hear people bemoan, "Oh, playoff expansion is going to make the regular season meaningless." Put the stakes on getting to that play-in weekend, and I think the regular season is going to be so meaningful because you're going to see a team like Minnesota always have a chance to get into that little cut line, but it's going to be that vital game against an Iowa or a winnable game against a maybe vulnerable Penn State or a USC that decides who has tiebreaker advantage. And week to week, you're going to have a couple games that maybe aren't top 10 teams. They're going to matter so much. That's what I want.
Well, I guess that puts myself in posing the next question to you of how many regular season games are you playing at that point? Because if we're having expanding to 24, I mean, yeah, a team could plausibly, again, be playing 15, 16 games. And at that point, I would argue, as someone who is a part of this thing, like the college football calendar itself is already too long. So are you moving it up? Are you cutting a game or two? Or how are you fitting in? Because in that instance, how does it all tie together? Especially at that point, if you have 24, your favorite thing in the world, which is bowl games, how does that all work? Because then these specific bowl games, which are already struggling to stay afloat, where does that tie into the equation? I know there's two different questions in that, so take it wherever you want to go. But again, that's the argument. Is that's just seems like it's not as simple as okay, 24, because then it's how do we adjust the regular season schedule, and then what happens to say the Pop Tarts Bowl or the Rate Bowl at that instance for other teams that say go 7-5, 8-4, but don't make it.
Yeah, bowl games, and I am coming to grips with this reality, might be going the way of the dodo here, at least in any kind of meaningful form. You might still get bowl games as like a way to showcase like lower tier teams, like the group of five teams that aren't going to be getting too many playoff spots. I do think bowls are probably dying if we do in fact get to 24. I don't see a world where they stay what they are right
Mm.
now. As far as the schedule goes, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about shifting the schedule up and opening up another week or two. So we've had week for a couple of years now, maybe longer, that week zero concept where teams were allowed to play if you played Hawaii, if you did an international game to give you an extra bye week. Sounds like college football is going the way of that's going to be open now for everybody. So that kind of moves it up one,
Well, to be clear, not this season,
not this
but
season.
they're open to the idea of moving it up as an entity to potentially open up for multiple bye weeks. Now, Minnesota has been the beneficiary, I should say, of multiple bye weeks, and this year will be the first time in a couple years that they've only got the one. But just to be clear, the scenario Dan's talking about is not being enacted this fall.
Correct. Yep. But that week zero window could become something. There's a good argument to be made for college football to move their schedule up because it means more weeks of not competing against the NFL where you can just be the star of the show. The challenge there is students, right? A core component of college football that I don't think you want to lose is the atmosphere and the student section and all of that. Move it up into August early and try to go any earlier than the week zero. I mean, you're already battling with, and Gophers see this. They don't have students all moved in yet for their first game on that Thursday. They get the benefit of all the orientation kids they give a ticket to or whatever to fill it out the student section. But you will have that problem. You can't move it too far up.
Mhm.
Um, but I think you stick with a 12 game schedule. Very interesting question is, do you move to 10 conference games? Maybe.
Or do you just mandate that you have to play 10 Power 4 opponents, which again, I don't mean this to be classic Big 10 podcast hits the SEC hard, but one of my least favorite weeks of the season is like mid-November because while the Big 10 is playing games that matter, it's Alabama versus Little Sisters of the Poor or Auburn versus Presbyterian. It's what what are we're missing the plot here because again, I understand that Minnesota for a long time needed games like that to be able to get to a bowl game or whatever it may be. And that's where I look at okay, so say it is you need to mandate these Power 4 teams to play 10 Power 4 games. Well, I look at the upcoming schedule at least for the next 6 years for Minnesota, and not much is going to have to change if anything because you think about the next 2 years, they've got Mississippi State here in just about 2 months. Next year, all of us get to go down to Starkville, Mississippi and go listen to 50,000 people with their cowbells, which is going to be, I think, rivaling for those of you who made the trip about a decade something ago to Oregon State to listen to that bleeping chainsaw that is essentially my sleep paralysis demon at this point. Just oh, I cannot stress to you how there are some nights where that's all I hear, like faintly out in the kitchen somewhere. But you've also got okay, well, the second half of the Cal back to back, which Minnesota went out to Cal Berkeley in 2028. Cal comes here. You've got Bama on the schedule in 2032 and 2033. And then, yeah, you're going to have to find a game come 2030. But Minnesota is not, it's not like you're actively looking for someone here in the short term. And that's where it can get tricky is if you're a team that say this gets enacted in the next 12 months, where the NCAA or whoever the presiding entity is of college football at that point says, everybody, if you want to make the college football playoff, well, guess what? You got to play 10 Power 4 games. Okay, well, Minnesota's not going to be looking and scrambling and just seeing who is the four other schools that we have to choose from that also don't have a Power 4 game because guess what? There's going to be one really good one average one bad one, and somewhere in between. And you don't also want to be the one left holding the bag there. So is it as simple as that where it's okay, let's mandate 10 Power 4 games?
I think it is. I think it will be. I will give you one note from your deep hatred of the SEC's Cupcake Week. That is dead now. This will be the last season we get SEC Cupcake Week.
Be still my beating heart as someone who loves themselves a nice little chocolate cupcake. I am so glad that's finally going away.
Yeah, that the as the SEC just mandated moved to 9 conference games and also required their conference to play another Power Four, a good opponent. They looked at the realities of scheduling and they just couldn't figure out how to get that cupcake week to work. So they said it's gone. It makes
Got it.
scheduling easier. They'll still, I'm sure SEC teams will still play cupcakes, but it ain't going to be at the second to last week of the
Yeah,
season anymore.
I remember this now. Okay, gotcha.
The as far as the Big Ten goes, it was interesting to see for a long time the Big Ten had scheduling high ground. They were the conference playing 9 conference games. They had real briefly a rule about you had to play another Power Four team, and then they relaxed that rule a little bit and let you start scheduling FCS games, and then
Right.
they just kind of completely got rid of the rule somewhere in there. Um, but the Big Ten had the edge over like the SEC plays 8 conference games. You had the cupcake week you could make fun of. Now that's gone. The SEC moves to 9 conference games and requires their teams to play a Power Four team. ACC followed suit. The Big Ten's left alone as the one conference that isn't requiring that tougher game. Easy to mock them now, but I think the reason the Big Ten didn't move at that point is because this is a negotiation point. We go back to talk about TV deals.
Hmm.
Their Big Ten's going to go to their TV partners. They're going to say, "We want more money. Give us more money." And the TV partners are going to say, well, you got to give us better games than Indiana versus three nobodies.
Yeah, it's the give and the take, baby.
Yep. And so I think the reason the Big Ten hasn't already done that is because it's leverage. It's going to get them money down the road. They were pressuring the SEC to move to 9 conference games as part of the playoff deal, and they still haven't figured out the future of the playoff games. But they got the SEC to move to 9 games, so mission accomplished for the Big Ten's desires there. They'll follow suit, I think, soon enough with requiring that 10th good game. Like you said, Minnesota's already well positioned. Thankfully, unlike some of the other teams, cough Indiana, like Minnesota has actually stuck to scheduling good opponents. I think it's malpractice not to give your fans a decent home non-conference game every other year. And I'm glad PJ Fleck had to work through some games that were already on the books before his time, but I'll give Fleck a ton of credit. He in the games when once his scheduling regime kicked in, he has always taken the power four opponent, and I appreciate that because it means we get fun games and
Well,
cowbells and stupid chainsaws. That was a nightmare. Our practices don't help either. Where we're at practice and they start playing that over the loudspeaker.
yeah, the
Never ends.
period where there's the pig pen period, which is to simulate Iowa,
I can't do
and
that
then
one.
there's the chainsaw for Paul Bunyan's axe. So I digress. But to Dan's point, for those of you who had, I can't believe if you haven't known this, that Indiana's schedule here for the next 4 years in the non-conference, an absolute, as the kids would say, a humdinger. Actually, I'm pretty sure kids don't say that anymore. I'm just an old soul. So this year, Indiana's non-conference opponents: Western Kentucky, North Texas, and Howard. No Power Four. Next year, Kennesaw State, Indiana State, and UMass. So Joe Harris-Simiak, former Gopher co-defensive coordinator, gets that buzzsaw. No Power Four. 2028, Austin P, Miami of Ohio, and Eastern Michigan. And then in 29, Ball State, Western Kentucky again, and Eastern Illinois. So if this gets enacted, it's going to be a nice little payday for whichever one of those three schools each year
Yeah.
has to get bought out of that because they're buy games. And then they're going to have to go find somebody. But to your point, I mean, that's the beauty of kind of how this thing has worked. 'Cause I think about like some of the places that I've been in the non conference, just like all the fans listening to this have been. That Colorado experience was awesome. Going out to Chapel Hill, that was a lot of fun. Cal Berkeley, a place that historically not a lot of us have been. That was a fun experience. You get to go to Mississippi State next year. There's going to be Alabama down the line for some kid who's now a fifth grader, soon to be sixth grader. But you at least have positioned yourself well if you're Minnesota, Mark Hoyle, PJ Fleck in that aspect to where when they do, because I don't think it's if, I do think it is when, because to your point, that is going to be a point of contention between the TV overlords and the Big Ten and the SEC is if you want more money, you need to give me better games. And what is historically going to be a better game that draws more eyeballs? A non traditional Power Four versus Power Four matchup that they can throw at 2:30 or 6, whatever it may be. And guess what? You're going to take the check and you're going to like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a matter of when, not if on this front. And look, I can't fault Indiana for what they've chosen to do because it clearly worked for them, but it sucks. It sucks so much to you're a national championship winner, and I mean you just read it out. That's your non-conference game. Like, give me something. At least give me like Indiana versus Indiana Louisville would be a fun game, wouldn't it? A little, Jeff Brom returns the state of Indiana action.
Yeah, look. You could essentially tell me really any Power Four team. Like, I'm surprised that I'm thinking about some of these empty years coming up for Minnesota down the line. Wouldn't it make sense for the Gophers to schedule Iowa State, or the Gophers to schedule, say, Kansas State? Like,
I I would love Iowa State. It'll never happen because Iowa State and Iowa are going to continue to play their game, and that's going to be their one non-conference Power Four matchup.
that's true. So we can cross off Iowa State from that list. I know there's
Well,
like I
I'll
don't.
I'll let you in on a little secret here. Yeah, we talked about my Friday Five coming this week, which is
Mhm.
going to cover conference expansion. Got another one currently cooking in the books right now on 5 non-conference opponents Minnesota's never played before. I'll tell you the one that shocked me as I started researching that,
Sure.
Boston College. I was
Hmm.
shocked Minnesota's never played BC. Spiritually, I think that's a good fit. And I'm surprised they didn't cross paths in like a bowl game. They're
I was about to say that feels like a
similarly
matchup
tiered.
for the Alamo or Sun Bowl back in like 2001.
Yeah, nah,
Never
nothing.
happened. Huh.
There was some interest. You mentioned K State. I think that is another matchup that's never happened before for Minnesota. I
See,
think I might be remembering that one wrong.
I just want to have like a regional matchup against a Power Four. Which peace and love to the fine folks of Fargo, North Dakota. They are not in the Power Four yet, and that's also part of. Again, I don't want to
Yet.
open that vein. I don't want to open that vein yet. But I think, especially as you try to figure out how to become more regional as a national conference, especially for trying to think of the fan, I think it just would make so much sense to try and find like a Kansas State or a Kansas type of team. Again, I think both teams would look at the game as okay, this isn't this is a winnable game for both sides in their minds,
Yeah.
and it's not a crazy drive or a crazy flight. Again, something to watch here down the line.
Well, and I'll keep just emptying out my ideas notebook for the Friday Five. Another concept, I heard this on a podcast recently. I was like, I love this idea. So I've been thinking about it a little bit. Is this idea of 21st century rival, right? Where you have rivals like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, like those are your true rivals, but that's not something that just started here in the 21st century. And then there are those teams that you do kind of develop a little bit of a might
So
not be
Nebraska.
permanent, but a newer rival. You said Nebraska? Did you just say Nebraska there? Yeah,
Mhm.
that's my number one. Where it's like there, that's Minnesota's 21st century rival. But I agree with you. I'd love to find something like that where you can just get in the mix, even just like you don't have to play a team like Kansas State every year, but like let's get Kansas State rotating through. Let's get a game against them. Women's basketball's playing Kansas State at the Pentagon here in November coming up.
Mhm.
Let's see a school like that just show up on people's schedules. Men's basketball, women's basketball. I assume Kansas State plays baseball, volleyball. Like I'd love to see a non-conference type of rivalry like that, where you just start to hate them a little bit, and they're close enough in crisscross travel to be a lot of fun.
I would tell you my other Big 12 school that I would love to see a matchup against, if only because I want to see the people swaying in the distance. Almost heaven, West Virginia, baby. Almost to go to Morgantown, a home and home with Rich Rod. Hear me out.
I
Again, I think like the West Virginia experience, and again, it got to the point where the United States men's national team has got John Denver playing because that gained more traction when West Virginia was making their college baseball run. I want to experience, and this is just me as the college football fan, I want to experience that feeling once in my life to see a Morgantown game. Now, if the Gophers win, guess what? I don't know that they're still swaying. They might be. They're going to be a lot less enthusiastic, but I think that's another one where it's get Morgantown to come to Minneapolis, Minneapolis to Morgantown, two more equally. Again, not one that you think, okay, plus or minus 10. Like you still got two Power Four teams. I'm just saying that's on my bucket list. I just want to, I'm trying to manifest it here into the college football ether.
Yeah, that's interesting to me because if you ask me one college football tradition that I want to experience, I'm just going a little bit more east. Give me Virginia Tech. I
Enter
want to be
Sandman.
on the field for Enter Sandman.
Well, you got to experience it out at the Duke's Mayo Bowl. What do you mean?
I mean the free it was so cold. It snowed after the game. That was a bummer that Charlotte ended up being just a real cold spell up there, but
That was I had some family out there. They still had a fun time. I think my
it
favorite
was good.
story from that is you checked a bag to bring back a bunch of Dukes. So to give people again, I'm with these sponsored bowl games historically. So Dan's holding it up there. Yeah, that's why did you have that easily accessible?
It's on my Minnesota shrine that's right
Oh,
above
that's
my
so
desk.
funny. So in the press box, we normally get like a gift bag or something. and for every seat in at the Duke's Mayo press box, it at in Charlotte there was a like a little thing as Dan just held up of mayo. And obviously it's the Duke's Mayo Bowl. There's not a ton of people media wise in there. So you could have just essentially scoop up as much free branded Gopher slash Virginia Tech mayo as you wanted and then bring it home. So I didn't have a check bag. So Dan took at least some of the mayo I was going to take, but you checking a bag. I can only imagine the guy at TSA that's just like, he's looking through the screen and he's like, what the hell? What is that? Does that man have a full suitcase full of just novelty mayo? Again, I'm sure it's not the craziest thing that somebody's seen, but my
Certainly not.
goodness.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I think I came back with 8 or 9 jars of mayonnaise. It was just a solid layer on top of my clothes and my it was a carry-on
Yeah.
suitcase. And I was like, I'm just checking this thing. It was free, whatever my seat was. Yeah, I'm noticing now it might this I don't know how long unopened mayonnaise lasts. At some point we may have a natural disaster on our hands with this thing.
We're getting to a point where I'm going to be scared for your system there if you were to eat it because I don't even know what type of bacteria is starting to fall. But you know what? Hey, to each their own. Your body, your choice.
Yeah, it's best by September 19th, 2025. So we're
Just a little
a
bit
little
past.
past
All
that,
right.
but probably Dukes. It's got the twang. Maybe let's just be a little bit more twangy.
Ah, jeez. All right. You got anything else before I tell some people what the plan is going forward here?
I don't think so. I think we've
Okay.
probably talked the ears off of everyone as far as college football business side things go.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. I know a lot of you have been either on Gopher Gazette, in my messages on social media, emails, whatever it may be, that you're desperate for some college football talk. We're trying to help you out here. We know it's the slow time, and we know it's going to ramp up here very soon. Like I said, the local media jackals will be back over talking to players and coaches for Gopher football next week. You'll be able to see all that. 2 weeks from now, I will be in Chicago for Big Ten Media Days with PJ Fleck. I think it's Anthony Smith, Maverick Baranowski, Darius Taylor, and Drake Lindsay. We'll be getting some different thoughts and feelings from them on different things. And 3 weeks from now, it's August and there will be fall camp. So we're getting very close here. I wanted to note that if you've enjoyed the banter back and forth between Dan and I, well, guess what? The plan after each Gopher football game this fall is we are going to go live on the YouTube channel and we're going to give 20 to 30 minutes of immediate thoughts. Now, what does immediate thoughts mean? Well, say you go to the game. Well, guess what? PJ Fleck takes his sweet time after a game, whether they won by 50 or lost by 50. And after we get done with the PJ Fleck slash the players press conference, we'll come back up to the press box, find a quiet spot. And so it'll probably be somewhere around 75 to 90 minutes after the last whistle. But I know there's a lot of you that obviously listen to this with myself, Luke Beward, Derek Burns. That's not going anywhere. That's going to be every Sunday still. But I know there's also an appetite for people who want you're still buzzing from the game and you want to see what we think or what we just heard from the coaches or the players about certain things. So the plan is, like I said, after every Gopher football game this fall, somewhere around 75, 90 minutes after, Dan and I are going to go live on the YouTube. You can check us out. We'll be posting links on social media. And then we will still have the Sunday show. There'll still be the Wednesday show to preview everything with myself and Luke. But you're going to be able to see a lot of that. And also, there's a lot of appetite, I've been told, for Gopher basketball podcasting, which I love Luke Beward dearly. I do. We've done this show now for, I don't know, a decade, it feels like. We're just an old married couple at this point, but we know that people want consistent Gopher basketball talk. That whether you're on a walk, going to work, at the gym, whatever it may be, well, that's going to be one of the beauties is we're going to be reviving Luke's talk Gopher buckets feed for those of you audio wise. But Dan, you've already done 2 episodes with the Ryan James, both on Gopher basketball recruiting, what you guys were able to see at the Gopher basketball summer practice. So where can people go find all that?
Well, you can find it right on the same YouTube channel that
Which is
you.
What do
catch this
people put into the
content.
YouTube? Say if they're listening to us and like, well, I can just first of all, I'm going to give this disclaimer again. You're going to see, and I look this directly into my camera, why I have a face for radio and a body for podcasting. I'm not telling you to look at me and think I look good. The only person I need to say that for is my wife. And I'm not certain days she may not feel that way. But that's where it's going to be is on the Gopher Gazette. If you put into the YouTube machine, you'll be able to see our GG logo. You'll see our videos there. That's where you need to go.
Yeah, Gopher Gazette YouTube page, and I tell you, like if you're an audio listener too, maybe if you like supporting us, um, head over to the YouTube page, hit that subscribe button. We are marching our way towards 1,000 subscribers. That's a goal. I'd say it's going very well so far, but that would be a huge help to us. If you're an audio only listener and you want that Gopher basketball audio goodness, as Burns likes to describe it in
Yep.
every one of his tweets,
You're learning.
you can head over to Talk Gopher Bucket, search that on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. You'll find it. If you don't find it, find me on Twitter, Dan Owen MN. Give me a holler, yell at me. I'll figure out how to get it there. We will work on it. I think it's everywhere, but you're surprised. But RJ and I, we will be there weekly during the season
Yep.
and monthly ish here in the off
In the off
season.
season.
I
Yeah.
say monthly ish because, as you said, we've already done 2 episodes, and I tell you that on Sunday night at about 9:45, RJ gave me a ring. We're already planning our next podcast, so
I love that.
we've got things to say, and we got microphones, which is a dangerous combination. So you can't stop us. We will be on your podcast feed. Subscribe audio again. Talk Go for Buckets, or here on the YouTube page as well.
Look at you. I'm like a proud mama bird now that I'm literally paying the both of you. You're doing stuff outside of your time to plan the next podcast. Be still my beating heart. So the hope, like we talked about a couple weeks ago when we relaunched Go for Gazette, is we want to give you guys consistent and quality Gopher coverage because I know that that's tough to come by, and I know that we're still very much early in this, but that is the plan. So we should be back here pretty soon. I think Dan and I might do another episode before Big Ten Media Days, going potentially over the biggest questions or storylines that I have for this team. Because trust me when I say, while I know that there's not a lot of things to talk about right now, I'm thinking about a lot of different things about how this 2026 Gopher team, at least in my mind, at least has the ingredients to have a ceiling season, which I do believe so. But there's also just like interesting storylines, such as, I don't know, both coordinators going into the season with like 4 months left on their deals. They're the only Big Ten program in my mind that I at least know of that's going to be the case. So I want to give people different things, or at least questions that I'm thinking about. So whether you got the group chat, whether you want to call mom or dad, you want to call your buddy, just talk Gopher football, just some different thinkers. So we'll get back into that next week. So for myself, for Dan, we want to thank you guys for listening, and go Gophers.